That's great. I think that's everyone here, so we'll just kick off. If you could move to the next slide quickly, Gila. Thanks. Um, so I'll just run us through a very quick welcome and introduction to the webinar. Thanks everyone this morning for joining. My name is Sam Greensmith, and I'm the project manager for the Accelerator from Scottish Enterprise. And I'll be working very closely with the cohort and the project as it goes forwards, alongside Arlene, who has joined us on the call, and Neil Kitchen, who is our energy transition specialist, who I'll be handing over to shortly, just to give us a little bit of context from Scottish Enterprise. We're also joined today by Natalie and James and Gia from Carbon Limiting Technologies, who are the partner company who will be delivering this accelerator itself, and they'll be giving us a little bit of an update later on to go through the accelerator, the course itself, and what you're likely to get out of it. And then later in the call, they'll also give us a little bit of an update on the application process and some of the frequently asked questions around that. So we're the team that will be delivering the accelerator and also answering any questions that you might have today or over the next couple of weeks. So we've got until the 9th of April to for people to get questions over to us or to get their applications in. And I'm sure you'll hear that date quite a few times over the course of the call, but that's just to keep it fresh in everyone's mind. So I'm going to now hand over to Neil, and he's going to give us a little bit of the background from Scottish Enterprise and Clean Heat. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I was just going to spend 5 minutes explaining what we mean by clean heat, because it's maybe not a term that everybody understands, what we mean by clean heat and why we think it's an important area that Scottish Enterprise wants to support. So next slide, please. So who are we? Scottish Enterprise is the main economic development agency in Scotland. We also have sister organisations, Highlands and Islands Enterprise in the north and South of Scotland Enterprise in the south. And you'll be pleased to know that applicants can have a base anywhere in Scotland for this particular call. So our aim is to help the economy and increase the number of jobs. We support companies with investment, innovation and internationalisation. And our business plan focuses on 3 missions. So firstly, energy. Secondly, increasing the number of innovative small companies that are growing fast. And thirdly, increasing capital investment in companies. And within energy transition, we focus on 3 areas. So that's offshore wind, hydrogen, and clean heat. We also have other branded organisations within our umbrella. Scottish Development International is our international arm, and the Scottish Manufacturing Advisory Service does what it says on the tin. It helps Scottish manufacturing companies. Next, please. So clean heat is really got quite a wide definition. The core of it is the heat technologies such as heat pumps, district heat networks, but also building energy efficiency and retrofit, and direct electric, things like storage heaters and infrared. So these are all the core technologies. For these technologies to work efficiently, you need lots of IT and controls and sensors. So all of that is within scope. And obviously to power all of this, you require renewable energy. So renewable energy that's connected to heat is within scope. And that includes things like waste heat recovery. And yeah, for clean heat, we support manufacturers, developers, distributors, installers, contractors, consultants, and the wider supply chain. Next, please. So yeah, Scotland is growing strongly in all areas of clean heat. We've identified around 600 companies in the very wide supply chain, and there's a lot of world-leading things going on in Scotland, albeit from a low base. There are other countries that have much more clean heat than we do, but we're growing from a low base and trying to grow up to have clean heat everywhere by 2045. Next, please. So the market is growing. This is a graph of MCS heat pump installations in Scotland. And you can see there's been an impressive 48% growth in the last 2 years. So that's not all heat pumps in Scotland. There's also heat pumps installed in new build, and that, of course, is ramping up quite rapidly because from the 1st of April last year, any new building warrants, you must install a clean heat system, which is likely to be a heat pump, a heat network, or direct electric heat. Next, please. So district heating is growing strongly as well, albeit from a low base. So in 2021, there's just over 1% of Scotland's heat provided by district heating, but there's targets to increase this to 7 terawatt hours or 9% of all Scotland's heat by 2035. And that's been driven forward by the Heat Network Scotland Act and the secondary legislation that's currently going through the system at present. To take this forward, we have every council has produced a local heat and energy efficiency strategy. So this is just an extract from Glasgow's. So you can see they've mapped out Glasgow into various zones. So they've identified areas for heat networks, 20 or 21, I think it is, zones in total that have a potential for heat networks. What's interesting is that covers 46% of Glasgow's homes, but actually 75% of the city's heat demand. So you can see that most commercial properties and public sector buildings would be expected to connect to a heat network, but only just under half of all homes. So quite expansive plans here, and to do this would certainly require a lot of investment. 5 billion is one investment, but one estimate, but it may be actually more than that. So for the areas not coloured in this map, the proposal is that individual heat pumps would be used to heat homes in most cases. But it's not just about the heat, it's also about energy efficiency. So Glasgow's LE's plan also covers energy efficiency proposals. Next, please. So yeah, it's a very, very brief overview. I could talk a lot more, but not today. But if you want to keep up to date with what Scottish Enterprise offers more widely beyond this particular call, then please sign up to our newsletter and you can tick as many boxes as you want, but do tick the clean heat box. I'll post a link to this in the chat just after I finish speaking. So I think that was my last slide. If you want to contact me, then there's my email, or you can contact me through LinkedIn. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back.
Thank you, Neil. I think we're just going to come to Richard, who we have kindly joining us on the call today. He was a participant in the previous accelerator, which ran throughout autumn and into winter last year. And he's just going to give us a little bit of an insight into his experience on the accelerator, how he found it, what he got out of it. So I'll hand over to Richard.
Morning all. Very pleased to come on this session to give you a little overview of what it was like from the participant perspective. Little intro. QZeta is a pretty young company. It's a spin out of a energy consultancy company that we also run. It's a new domestic heating system really focused on building in heat storage with a novel little heat pump to get the best of all worlds in terms of flexibility and coefficient performance. We have prototypes. We've had our first revenues from some demo project studies and some energy system impact studies. And we're just working on our first pilot programs now. So we were we were definitely at the young age, not me personally, but the company, of the cohort on the last one. But fortunately, we sneaked in, and it was extremely valuable to us at this important stage in our journey. So I guess I'm going to give you a little insight and a perspective on what it's like as a younger, closer to startup, early revenues company rather than a established business growing, which you might hear from a little bit later. So we were super excited to be invited in to sort of elbow our way in to the cohort. We are at the stage of considering business models, whether we have a B2C, a business to consumer, or a business to business proposition, how we structure our investment plans, our stages in that, understanding the regulations that we need to work within, how we put ourselves out there, digital marketing, and how we build a team. And I think probably the main takeaway from us from the CHA program is just how well structured a program to hit all those bases it was. I think I had a little bit of a fear going in that it was just going to be another series of webinars, sort of being talked at for hours on end. But it definitely wasn't. There was a lot of audience participation. You had to get stuck in, get involved. When we were going through each of the topics, you were expected to actually create things online in the sessions. Typically, there would be more of a information session on a Monday and a participation session on a Thursday. But it was extremely valuable for us in terms of the forcing us, if you like, this is possibly the wrong word, but encouraging maybe, but to actually think through all of these key issues that a lot of small businesses like ourselves never actually make the time to do. So in a way, it was great for me to say to my colleagues, "Oh, I've got Clean Heat Accelerator session here. I've got to go and spend some time on that," and it just forces you to disciplines you to do that. I think the webinars, as I've already said, are very much not webinars. They're differentiated from what you would normally see in a sort of taught course, a CPD type event, where you get stuck in yourself. There's a legacy of a really useful set of slides and little examples you've created for yourselves of things like customer journeys and value propositions, etc., to draw on. And you do get one-to-one mentoring from some very experienced people. That was particularly valuable for us. The lady we had was excellent in terms of her individual input outside the structured program. And I think the program is evolving as well. I mean, we were the second cohort, and I rather suspect the third cohort will have a even better iterated and optimized program of events. We all gave pretty detailed feedback, mostly positive, but a few thoughts as well to consider, and some of them may pop up in the next lap. So we're all kind of learning. A little note, you will get out of it what you put in. It's quite a time commitment, and little companies, busy people, not much free time. So it is a time commitment, but I guess our thought on it after the fact was it was time extremely well spent. And if you do go in with both feet and do participate to the full, you'll get the most out of it. And it's kind of what you should be doing if you're thinking of growing in this sector. And we often don't take the time to do it. In terms of outcomes, I mean, as I've said a couple of times already, it was extremely timely and relevant to our stage. And I think that was the case for the whole spectrum of businesses, whether diversifying or growing or reconsidering business models or new products, or more startup companies like ourselves. It was extremely valuable. It was good personal development for me. I've sort of meandered my way through a business career, kind of learning on the hoof, and it was actually quite good to hear some actually learned thoughts and insights of what I should have been doing all these years. So as a personal professional development, it was valuable for me. It was great to be part of a network. It was actually a great group of people we had, and just good to shoot the proverbial in the sector. It's not always easy here, and you do have a sort of camaraderie and a feeling of being in a cohort, which was great. We met some really interesting companies and contacts, which hopefully will be really valuable for us going forward, both within the program and at the various sessions. Typically, they'll have an external speaker giving some learned insight or some tutoring on the topic you're covering that week, which is really useful. And a number of those contacts have survived in my list to use and abuse going forward. And two of the companies on the cohort we're actually working with, so that's not bad outcome as well. One from a technical support, from an installation support perspective, and the other one from getting us a route through to early pilot projects. So really useful there. So in conclusion, I would say I wholeheartedly recommend getting involved. As I say, a little bit of trepidation. God, we were excited to be involved, thought it would be valuable, and was extremely and continually positively surprised with that, and rewarded by it. I think the time invested has been strongly value positive. It's kind of forced us, it focused us on what we really needed to do to move forward, rather than just following the path of least resistance, and therefore was well worth the time put in. So I'm happy to take any questions. I don't know what the format of the event is, questions now or later, but anyway, hopefully that's a useful insight to what it's like on the receiving end of the Clean Heat Accelerator to help you make your decisions.
Thank
Fantastic.
you.
No, go ahead, Natalie. Sorry.
I thought I was taking over there. Thank you, Richard. I think we'll probably do questions at the end with the Q&A. That's all right.
Okay. Yep. I'll hang around.
So you've heard a bit from Richard about the programme. Thank you very much, Richard. And I'll give you a brief overview of what to expect from the accelerator. Just by way of background, CLT, who delivers this programme on behalf of Scottish Enterprise, is a consultancy that works on commercialisation and scale up of low carbon technologies. And this is what we're focused on throughout our accelerator programmes, working really closely with SMEs to help them to grow in clean tech, and in this case, in clean heat. As Sam mentioned, I'm Natalie Fredericks, and I'm the programme lead from CLT for the accelerator. So what are the aims of the programme? Firstly, to help you to grow your business, to be able to participate in some of the opportunities that have been outlined by Neil earlier, and to meet Scottish Government's heat and building strategy. Secondly, to build your sector knowledge, also beyond your existing business, to understand the opportunities in the wider sector. We aim to expand your network. You've heard and will hear from the previous participants about how the programme provides plenty of opportunities to do this. We aim to build your management skills and those within your teams. And a specific outcome will be to develop your action plan for growth. This is a practical plan for the months following the accelerator. So on the next slide, this is a bit of an overview of the accelerator and what specifically is involved. There'll be 2 virtual workshops a week. One will be in depth on a particular topic, and then one will be a follow-up to either reinforce or expand on that topic. I'll show the topics that are covered on the next slide, but these are interactive sessions, as Richard mentioned, with experts. Some will be on the sector-specific topics, and some will be on the more general business topics. There'll be plenty of opportunity to share knowledge with other cohort members during these sessions. There'll be 3 in-person events with speakers and a chance to network and build relationships, and site visits. They'll usually be around a specific theme, and we'll have a chance to go into a bit more depth during that day. Each company will have a mentor. These are experts who will help you to develop your strategies and your growth plans, and they'll also make introductions to potential partners and so on. There's also a stipend of £2,000 available towards the costs of participating. And overall, I should say, again, as Richard mentioned, there is some time commitment for this programme, but I have to say that all the previous participants found they got a lot out of the sessions and the group interactions, and we'll see how well they did in a moment. And they've all said that it's been well worth the time investments. So on the next slide, we see an overview of the topics that we'll cover in the accelerator. So there's a lot of information on here, but you can see on the purple boxes, these are the 3 in-person events. The first is a launch event where you get to meet each other, have some speakers from larger customer organisations. The second is an event that's focused around skills. And the last one is a networking event with an opportunity to meet with potential partners, customers and investors. Mentoring happens throughout the programme. And then the blue and green boxes are the virtual workshops. And the subjects cover sector knowledge, such as the evolution of clean heat technologies, customer profiling, marketing topics such as digital marketing, procurement framework, strategic sales, growing your team, IP, financial management, IT systems for growth, and so on. Quite a lot of topics on here. The orange boxes indicate review points. That's where we gather feedback from the cohort during the programme and after the programme to look at the impact and look at how the cohort's doing as a result of the accelerator. So if we go on to the next slide, this is an overview of the timeline for the programme. Applications close in early April, and James will give you more detail on that. And then the launch event for the accelerator will happen on either the 21st or the 22nd of May. With chances to have a meeting with your mentors in the following week. The virtual sessions start the next week on the week commencing the 26th of May, and then runs through with some breaks right through till the end of September with a final event in early October. And then comes the feedback and the monitoring on a quarterly basis, where we ask all the participants to feedback on how their business is progressing over the following year, so that Scottish Enterprise can evaluate the impact of the accelerator. So on the next couple of slides, we can take a quick look at the 2023 and 24 cohorts. For both, we've had a mix of technology developers and service providers, such as installers, contractors and consultants, which made for really interesting discussions and also ongoing partnerships between participants. So on the next slide, we were really pleased with the impact and outcomes of the previous Clean Heat accelerators. They were great success. This is what some of the participants said. I won't read out the quotes, but almost all said they'd made valuable connections and were likely to secure new customers. And we've seen a 60% average increase in sales across the cohort. This is for the first cohort in the year after the end of the accelerator. And as you can see, as I mentioned from the quotes, really, really positive about this accelerator. Many of them had been on other accelerators before, and really they rated this as the best they'd been on. So on the next slide, they also said they developed their skills, were likely to grow faster, achieve new sales, and grow their team. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of the programme, what's involved and what you're likely to get out of it. So I'm now going to hand over to James, who'll run through the application and selection process, after which we'll hear from another of the participants from last year's accelerator.
Thank you very much, Natalie. I've got 5 minutes to run through the application selection process, the very first part of the Gantt chart that Natalie showed. All of this is set out in detail in the guidance notes for the application process, which you can download from the Scottish Enterprise Clean Heat Accelerator website. So as Natalie mentioned, the deadline for the applications to be submitted to us is 5 o'clock on the 9th of April, and the application form this year can be downloaded from the Scottish Enterprise website and then is emailed back to us as per the instructions in the form. We will immediately go into the assessment process, so they will be assessed by 3 assessors. Oh, not yet. Thank you. And that process will run from the 10th to the 18th of April. So it's a very quick and compressed assessment process. And we aim to notify you of the outcome in week commencing the 21st. So there's a little bit of flexibility there to review and confirm. And then, as Natalie said, the accelerator starts in May. And you can see a little screenshot on the right-hand side of the application form. Next slide, please. Thanks. So I said all of this can be downloaded from the website. There's the link in full and a QR code that you'll be able to scan to access everything. Next slide. So I'm now going to run through the eligibility criteria and then the questions within the application form, so you know what to expect. All of this is set out in more detail in the guidance notes, but more than happy to take any questions at the end of the session. So applicants do need to be directly involved in clean heat. That can be a range of different technologies. We've listed them here, including energy efficiency. So that is an area that we're particularly interested to see applications from for this accelerator. You can be a manufacturer, installer, service, or any part of the supply chain for clean heat technologies. But there does have to be a carbon reduction impact from whatever technology or service you provide. And you have to have the ambition to grow to support the clean heat agenda within Scotland. Okay, so there is an inbuilt expectation that applicants to the accelerator will be looking to grow their activity and their market share in the clean heat sector. Next slide. You will need to be a small or medium-sized SME. Focus of the accelerator does tend to be on smaller and earlier stage businesses, not necessarily quite as early as Richard, who described himself as elbowing his way in, but they do tend to be smaller businesses. You do have to be active, so not only a registered company, but actually actively operating. So that is trading with goods and services on the market. They don't necessarily have to be clean heat because it's for businesses moving into clean heat as well, but you do have to be an operational business. You need to be either registered in Scotland or have a material operational base within Scotland and employ staff in Scotland. If anyone is not sure whether they count as having a material operational base in Scotland, please ask us. Please ask us the question. The support is given for the accelerator under UK subsidy control rules under the minimal financial assistance. So you do have to confirm that you're able to accept the support that we offer. Details for the value for all of that is set out in the guidance notes. And we do a check that there are no Russian links with your company, which would render you ineligible. Next slide. Thanks. So the application form is split effectively into three sections. The first covers general information and eligibility criteria, the sort of things you would expect that we'd need to know, who you are, where you are, what your status is, your position under subsidy control to be able to receive the support, and also those questions on any Russian links. The second section has 4 questions in it, which are the assessed questions. I'll run through each of those on the next slide, but each of them is scored out of 10 and then they are weighted to give a total score out of 100. So you'll be able to see on the next slide which of the questions, which are the areas we feel are most important when making our selection decisions. And they each have a maximum of 500 words. So you can provide 500 written words in there, but it is possible to provide some additional information later. The final section covers all of the additional things that we need to know about, gives you the space to state any additional information that you're providing alongside the application. There's a privacy notice, there's information about our ability to contact you in the future, and the question about where did you hear about this project, as well as gauging interest in an initial CEO meet and greet session. and then you submit it, and we will email back confirmation that we've received the application. Next slide, please. So the 4 questions with the weightings on the right-hand side of the slide. So a brief description of your business, where you are, what you do at the moment. So this should cover how far you are currently involved in clean heat and what your aspirations are over the next 2 to 3 years. This one's weighted at 20%. Second question covers the commercial proposition, particularly in relation to green heat. So this is your customers, your routes to market, supply chain and partners. This is where you can describe those. 25% weighted. Question 3, which is the highest weighted at 30%, is the one that asks about the ambition and growth potential of your business over the next 3 years. So this does a little bit of looking back, so what happened over the last 3 years, but also the forecast over the next 3, and why you think that's realistic, and how much of that relates to your activity within clean heat. Always important to evidence and justify the potential growth that you're describing. The 4th question, rated again at 25%, is a bit of a self-analysis question, which is asking how you think the programme would be able to help your business. So it's thinking about what your current barriers are, the 3 key challenges that you face, and how you think you would benefit from the programme. Next slide, please. Thanks. And then the final section gives you space to state what documents you're emailing to us alongside the application, and provide any links to the website, to your website if you need to. Privacy notice, and then a series of questions that do not affect the scoring. So there's the opt-in or out of future contacts from us. Clearly, if you opt out of contacts, we will still reach out to you to let you know the outcome of your application and reach out to you for your participation if you're successful. There's a question about where you heard about the project. That's for our internal analysis. And I mentioned the initial CEO session. You sign a declaration confirming that everything you've submitted is true and that you're authorised to apply, and send the application off to us. Next slide. I did mention that you're scored by 3 assessors, and we're expecting to invite up to 15 businesses to join the cohort. So we have a balanced portfolio of companies across different types of companies, different areas of activity, and across the green heat sector. I mentioned notifications week commencing the 21st of April. That will then be followed by a participation agreement, which is a very simple document that just covers the expectations for participating. So it talks about things like confidentiality, how the sessions will operate, and keeping things confidential among the cohort. And then the programme commences. I think that's my last slide. So at that point, I'm going to hand over to Kenny Eason from Power Circle Projects, who's the second of our participants from the previous cohort who's going to speak to you.
Hello. So, assuming everyone can hear and see me okay. Yeah, so I'll start with a very brief intro to myself and to Power Circle. So my name's Kenny Eason. My job title is Project Development Manager. And for the time being, at least, I do mostly what it says on the tin. Power Circle is a Scottish-based social enterprise. We have an established energy consultancy business. And then the bit that was more relevant to us for the purposes of the accelerator was we're preparing to launch this year an energy services company offering with an innovative business model. And that was very much the angle based on which we applied to the accelerator. We were thinking mostly about building up expertise internally, building up capacity. And in particular, we were thinking about it as a development opportunity for staff, mainly myself. Because I mentioned we're launching that innovative business model this year, and for my sins, I'm going to have a key role within that. So it was about laying the groundwork for that kind of transition period there. In terms of experience, the accelerator overall, I would entirely echo what Richard said. I think it was a really valuable experience and like really worth the time. I think one of the really positive elements of it is that to an extent it forces you, or at least it sort of strongly incentivizes you to carve out the time kind of every week. It's a little bit like being in an exercise class. You know, if there's a little bit of social pressure there to kind of make you come along and do it, you're more likely to do it. And the kind of collaborative element of the workshops was really good. It kind of takes advantage of the knowledge and expertise in the room, which after we'd kind of all gotten kind of comfortable with each other and started kind of contributing, it became really apparent that actually we had a really good, really kind of varied room. And it was unusual that there was a topic that we were covering that somebody in the room didn't know a lot about, which I think really added to the kind of richness of it. And apart from anything else, you know, the banter's great. One participant memorably remarked, we were talking about how much of a feel-good factor there is installing low-carbon technologies, and his thought on that was he reckons most of his customers would burn puppies if it was the cheapest heating fuel at home. So there were frank exchange of views there. On the subject of kind of just attending week to week, the stipend is kind of nice. Because apart from anything else, we're all human. There's a tendency, even with best intentions, to, you know, let things kind of trail off, but actually having that sort of moderately sized kind of financial carrot kind of dangled in front of you, it will help to keep those who are involved in the accelerator coming back and kind of keeping going with it. In terms of other elements that were really valuable, we found that the mentoring experience was excellent, as much as possible. It'll be tailored to the needs and stage of the business. We're at quite a different stage to kind of QZeta, and we're a very different business to QZeta and to like the others on the cohort. So we're a social enterprise. This obviously implies very different options in terms of raising capital and growing the business than for a private sector company or a technology startup. We're not a technology manufacturer, so we're in a completely different position vis-a-vis things like IP. But we had different mentors who were matched to us based on the best fit, and our experience of that was very, very positive. Alison, our mentor, was a really good fit for us. The in-person events were really good. Having the whole day each time to do in-depth coverage of topics and also to cement the networking and the relationships, I think was really valuable. I'm somebody who believes in kind of in-person communication in any case. I think that, you know, human beings were built to interact in person, and I think that that was kind of borne out by the in-person events that we did. The cohort was really good for us. As a consultancy business that's moving into the energy services company realm, we were quite unique. Within the cohort, we didn't have any competitors in the room, which was very helpful for us. And there were some potential collaborations there, which we were able to kick off during the time that we were on the accelerator. So I would say those relationships are a tangible outcome for us that has the potential to be really valuable going forward. In terms of kind of other outcomes, I think we got out what we put in and what we came for, which was building of expertise, building up the knowledge and business literacy of key staff. And then, as I say, I think those relationships are probably one of the really big tangible outcomes for us there. I think, I mean, I could go on, but I think I've probably just about filled my time there, but I will hang around for questions. Delighted to talk about it further.
Great, thank you very much, Kenny. And no, really appreciate hearing really quite how much people have got out of it. I think that we are just about to move into the Q&A, and we still have Kenny and Richard with us on the call. So I'll open the floor to anyone that might have any questions. Feel free to shout them out or put them in the chat. And as I said earlier, we can also field any questions that you might think up after the call or not sure whether this is the right time to ask them. Feel free to reach out and email us. But over to you. I always quite like it actually if there aren't questions because it means that you've probably done quite a good job of actually describing what you're trying to. So I don't think that any are coming through just at the moment. I haven't seen any in the chat.
I was going to say one of the things that we quite often get asked is whether different people can come to different sessions. It's not something I mentioned in the overview, but what quite a lot of the participants tend to do. If there's a particular topic, for example, marketing or finance, and some of the businesses that are slightly large, obviously all small businesses, but might send different team members to different sessions, which is absolutely fine, and they found very valuable. So although many of the sessions are sort of targeted perhaps at the senior management, there are plenty of opportunities to send other team members along to some of the sessions as well. That's one of the questions that came up last time, I think.
Natalie, can I ask, Ed Craig, CEO of Carbogenics, and we're obviously, well, not obviously, but we're invested in by Scottish Enterprise and for the last 3-4 years. How does the venture team and other aspects of SE view this program as far as a potential to support their ongoing development?
It's not one that we've linked into directly as part of the program so far. However, there are a number of Scottish Enterprise support teams that you will be introduced to during the program. And so for companies that aren't already working directly with Scottish Enterprise, that's a great opportunity to see what kind of support is currently available. For companies like yourself, I think it will be another chance to enter that wider SC support ecosystem and carry on that kind of development journey from there.
Can I just clarify, Ed, are you on the High Growth Ventures program? Is that what you were saying?
Neil, I am, yeah, but also we've received, we've received some investment directly from Scottish Enterprise as well. So I'm just wondering what the connectivity was with that. So
yeah,
I know that there's, yeah, go on, Neil.
You're welcome to apply to this as well. This would be an additional, more intense form of support with access to lots of good quality consultants and advice. So yes, please apply as well. And at the final session, you'd be introduced to all the different Scottish Enterprise support teams. So obviously you're already in there, Ed, so that's maybe less valuable to you, but yeah, I think you'd still get a lot out of this.
Okay, cool.
Richard?
Just to, coming on the back of that, there was definitely, the final session was actually a bit of an eye-opener for me. It had a long association with Scottish Enterprise through various different guises over nearly 25 years, and there were 3 or 4 groups and teams that I didn't even know existed in terms of business support, research, data, etc. So definitely good links in there. And yes, there was kind of contact with and association with the investment side of Scottish Enterprise as well. So I mean, my feeling, not knowing your exact situation, but my feeling would be it would be very much complementary and actually introduce you to a wider network than just the investment team.
Thanks, Richard. I should also say on the back of that even if you're here on this call and you don't feel that the accelerator is right for you, that SE support isn't limited to people that are on the accelerator. It's all completely open and accessible. It's all free. If you are interested in being engaged with any of that, but don't feel that the accelerator is right for you, just reach out to us and we'll make those introductions. And I also had another note that I don't think has been covered yet. Reminded from listening to Richard and Kenny that the previous cohorts have got a lot out of the other participants and started building collaborations between themselves. We know that it's actually coming into the third accelerator now, a very strong alumni group that we have of the previous two cohorts. So we are looking into our options currently of introducing the three cohorts once the third one has been decided, and setting up some manner of alumni network so that networking can continue. So that's just to keep people updated on that. I don't think has been covered explicitly on the webinar or on the website yet.
And we've had a few suggestions from the previous cohorts to how we might do that. And I have to add that was a very enthusiastic cohort to try and stay connected, and think also with the previous one in the current one. So, you know, as the community grows, we can get more and more out of it.
All right, Kenny.
Yeah, I thought I would add as well. Just I think it was mentioned possibly by Natalie. So one of the things that they're going to get you to do if you join the accelerator is a growth plan for the business toward the end. I would say that's another thing where you'll get out what you put into it. And for us, that's actually been a really valuable exercise, because I'm sure many people on the call will kind of empathize that if you're a small company or a startup and you're immersed in the day-to-day of kind of moving things forward, you sometimes forget to stick your head above the parapet and have a serious think about, right, where are we going with this? And undertaking the exercise of actually doing a 2-year growth vision, a year's worth of concrete objectives, and then breaking that down into a concrete action plan was, I think, for us, a really valuable exercise.
Thank you very much. Appreciate we're coming towards the end. Are there any other questions for now? Yes, Richard.
Yeah, just to say, obviously these kind of webinars can be a bit hard to sort of open up and so on. I think you'll be able to find me and Kenny on LinkedIn if you want any insight from us other than directly supporting CLT, contacting CLT. But delighted to answer any further questions in that forum, and good to connect anyway.
Great. Thank you both very much. I think we'll wrap it up there, but hopefully you've got some useful information out of the webinar today. Hopefully we'll hear from some of you in the near future, but as we said, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, thank you all very much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
very
all.
much,
Take care.
everybody.
Cheerio.
Thank you.
Bye.